afraid the strain was more than he could bear.
Hi everyone and welcome to Priority Holder, and today we'll be playing Abzan Renegade Roots in the Timeless format. Now the enchantment we're building around today is Insidious Roots, and whenever one or more creatures leave our graveyard, this creates a plant token and places a 1/1 counter on each plant. So the more we do it, the more plants we get and the stronger they get. So we have some ways to enable us with some self-milling creatures to try and rapidly fill our graveyard. Hopefully putting some Bloodghast in there is some easy ways to trigger Insidious Roots. But a different tweak on this list, as opposed to previous ones I've run, is running Renegade Rallier. 3 mana 3/2 with the Revolt ability. So as long as something left the battlefield under our control this turn, when Rallier enters, we get to return a permanent card with mana value 2 or less from our graveyard to the battlefield. So you can return fetch lands from your graveyard, for example, creatures, or copies of Insidious Roots. So if we just mill them over, we bring them back with Renegade Ralliers. It also can do some really filthy things when combined with Chthonian Nightmare. This lets us sacrifice creatures to bring stuff into play, which works really well with Insidious Roots. We can bring back impactful things and loop things around, get some value, create some plants, and Renegade Rallier gives you so many options. It's hard to explain how awesome this card works in this kind of shell. Also running powerhouses like Orcish Bowmasters. Accursed Marauder really helps deal with opposing threats. We have a lot of sacrifice fodder for it. Running Deathrite Shaman needs no introduction, does a lot. We can also exile our own creatures with it to trigger roots, so it's important to remember that. And running 4 Griefs as some interaction, like basically replacing Thought Seizes with Griefs since it's like a creature, which matters with a lot of our effects. Not running the Undying effects, so we don't have like the scam package. You could call this just like a light fishing attempt. But anyway, let's jump into some games. Pretty strong hand. Can turn 1 Deathrite, turn 2 Dark Ritual out of Grief, which seems pretty great. So that seems to be the plan, and we already have Chthonian Nightmare. Let's see if we can make something happen. And Phyrexian Tower makes it like an interesting choice if we had like an Undying effect. But yeah, gonna run out Deathrite Shaman and see where this goes from here. Playing against the Gigantha deck. See what the opponent plays. Green-black land into Wild Nikado. Okay, clearly a domain strategy, and yeah, it still seems best just to Dark Ritual out a Grief and see what we're dealing with. Would have loved if the opponent used a fetch land, because then we could play another Deathrite Shaman. Opponent has a lot of good stuff in their hand. So 2 Tribal Flames, Stubborn Denial, and Inti. And decide to take Inti because that's like their one other threat. And like, you know, the Tribal Flames are potent, but we'll take a lot of mana to deploy them. So opponent goes ahead and shocks in and then uses a Lightning Bolt. So now we have perfect knowledge of their hand. So they still have the Tribal Flames to aim at our face, which can be pretty dangerous. Another Dark Ritual is something at least. I mean, we can empty out our hand, so play Chthonian Nightmare and a Deathrite Shaman. So we can't bring back Grief because we don't have enough energy. But if we could somehow get a smaller creature in the graveyard with enough loops, we can eventually go positive on energy and bring back Grief. So opponent's going to shock in another land, attack in. Now this is a really tough situation. The opponent has Deathrite and 10 points of burn in hand. We're only at 12. So like they already, based on the resources they have, can kill us. Now we can like hold up mana to counter Deathrite's, you know, black activation against us. Renegade Rallier is really interesting. This deck has some complicated loops, so if you see my timers buzzing off sometimes, that's what's going on. I'm trying to figure out how to trigger Revolt sometimes, or what things to sacrifice and what to bring back with Renegade Rallier. It's like, it can get tricky. So what I'm doing is triggering Revolt by sacrificing Deathrite Shaman to Phyrexian Tower. Renegade Rallier then just brings back Deathrite Shaman, so it just comes into play for free. And we get the activation off Deathrite, and it's untapped. So not the biggest gain in that case, but it's nice to have a 3-power creature on board versus what the opponent's doing. Now they dash out a Ragavan. We're definitely going to trade off a Deathrite Shaman. We love targets in the graveyard for Chthonian Nightmare. And Renegade Rallier is like a super potent thing to bring back with Chthonian Nightmare. We're gonna go ahead and ding their life total a little bit. Alright, Verdant Catacombs. So I go ahead and crack it here. It's actually not necessary for triggering Revolt, like, because if we use Chthonian Nightmare right now, that leading play triggers Revolt already. So gonna go ahead and ding the opponent's life total for 2. Now this is a dangerous game we're playing right here because, you know, opponent could untap, rip another untapped land, and they have 10 points of burn ready for us. So we have to try and pad our life total. And I'm going to do the first Nightmare loop and bring back Deathrite Shaman. The reason is, alright, so opponent just uses Stubborn Denial. They're trying to stop our looping, and we are forced to use our Phyrexian Tower. So, still haven't gotten enough energy to bring back Grief, but we do have some creatures to place in front of the opponent's stuff. My opponent draws another Wild Nacatl. And they're going to Tribal Flames our life total. So we're down to 6. We draw a Marsh Flats. And so this is where you have to do calculations, stuff like that. So I'm just making sure the mana is working out such, like, basically, I know I'm going to be sacrificing Deathrite Shaman, but do I have enough energy to, do enough mana to use it and do all the stuff we want to with multiple Nightmare loops. So we're going to get rid of their creature and gain some life. Sacrifice it to Chthonian Nightmare to bring back Deathrite Shaman. The reason is that's going to leave behind surplus energy so we could finally bring Grief back. So we're going to play Chthonian Nightmare again. And now we're guaranteed to be able to Grief them right now. Which is incredibly important because that's 5 points of burn they have in our hand. Not to mention it gives us another 3 power blocker for their Nacatl. And I'm going to hold up fetching for a Surveil land right here. The opponent's just going to bring Gigantha to hand. Play a Triome. Didn't play the Chthonian Nightmare in that situation because we want to keep... wanted to get the Surveil land. So, I'm going to block Wild Nacatl here. And the opponent doesn't have any mana left to do any Deathrite stuff. Which is a dangerous spot for them to be in because, you know, they have Deathrite which can police our graveyard, but they have been sort of mana screwed, so they haven't been able to, like, punish us for our Nightmare loops at all. Go ahead and keep Deathrite Shaman on top because what we want is more fodder to feed into Chthonian Nightmare. So, I'm going to go ahead and just attack. And the opponent's under pressure right here. So we're going to play Chthonian Nightmare. And this is where things get really silly because of Renegade Rallier, we're going to be able to just start bringing back tons of stuff. So we're going to activate Chthonian Nightmare. You know, sacrifice Deathrite Shaman. It's going to bring back Renegade Rallier, which can bring back a land or a Deathrite. It seems like Deathrite is what we want in this instance. Then we can play Chthonian Nightmare again. And just have it at the ready at this point in time. So the opponent's in big trouble. Alright, so they're adding mana right now. Alright, and they're just going to play Gigantha and pass to us. And Gnawing Vermin is actually perfect. So I do a lot of graveyard checking this deck because of Chthonian Nightmare and Roots. So I'm going to mill ourselves with Gnawing Vermin and happen to hit a perfect target with the Accursed Marauder. So we can do like a fun little trick right here. Like, honestly, Accursed Marauder alone can do this, but what we're going to do is sacrifice Gnawing Vermin to give their creature -1/-1. Actually, no, never mind. I'm not doing any Bowmaster tricks. So just sacrificing Marauder. They're going to, of course, feed the Deathrite to it, but we can just do it again right here. And you can just see the power of Chthonian Nightmare. Like, it's no wonder why, like, I love this card. Like, this card's insane. Like, you can just do crazy loops like this and just break opponent's spirit. So we're bringing back Marauder again and just taking out all their creatures and have exactly 6 points of damage coming in. So if you like seeing Domain get slammed, please Aliborn Cavalier that like button and we're on to the next one. Now we have a Roots hand. Now the thing is, Roots and Nightmare both work really well together, but they're each enchantments, you know, so like naturally throwing that many enchantments in your deck is going to dilute your creature count. So you have to be wary of that. We're going to pitch cast Grief and sacrifice it to Phyrexian Tower to play a Bowmasters, and that turned out to be enough for the opponent. So, you know, we take those wins and we can get them, and Grief is just that strong. If you have a sketchy hand, like if you thought Thoughtseize was bad, Grief's a whole nother ballgame. So, opponent's going to surveil a Lightning Bolt away. We'd love to see that. You know, Lightning Bolt can always take care of our stuff. Now, playing a bunch of Bloodghasts in this deck because they're absolutely incredible when they're in your graveyard. Like, we have a little bit of self-mill enablers to help set up Roots and with Bloodghast and stuff, but they are incredibly awkward in your hand when you don't ever want to cast them. So that is like a mark against them when you don't have readily available discard outlets. So opponent passes again. I'm really curious what's going on over there. They also don't have a Lurrus Companion. So we're going to send out Orcish Bowmasters. It's not likely it's going to live. Yeah, the opponent has a bolt, so. But we get to ding them for a little bit, and alright. So this is interesting. Can't quite... I'm sure there's some lines I'm missing right here, but I'm going to go ahead and Phyrexian Tower away this token after tapping it for mana. That's another thing that Roots does. It turns your tokens into mana dorks, which is really strong. Gonna Renegade Rallier back Bowmasters. It just seems like really strong in this matchup. Not to mention it's gonna give us a Roots trigger right here. Get a plant token back. And you can see like when our engines get going how wild things can get. Definitely sacrificing Renegade Rallier because Bowmasters has a higher chance of punishing them with like a Fable or something, or Sword of Fire and Ice. Love the ingenuity over there, but things are going to get real nasty for them right now. I'm going to play Bloodghast and hard cast another Bloodghast off our tokens. Just trying to put as much power and toughness onto the board right now. But I applaud the opponent's ambition over there. Don't think that's going to be enough, and yeah, they pack it in, so we move on to the next game. Double Grief, Chthonian Nightmare, Bloodghast, Bowmasters. This isn't... So we're not going to be able to scam them, but we can do another Phyrexian Tower, like, super value play right here. Going to pitch the extra copy of Grief, holding full control, both for Phyrexian Tower and for Grief's discard. We're going to see what we're dealing with. Alright, red-black deck, Lurrus Companion, and honestly a stacked hand right here. Eidolon is really good against us, so go ahead and grab it there. Honestly, maybe should have taken Orcish Bowmasters. It's always hard, like these discard decisions. You have to look so far into the future, and it doesn't always work out. But it's very interesting to think about at the very least. So opponent plays Kumano and passes Renegade Rallier. We don't have mana for it. The mana can be tough. Like, we do have Deathrite Shamans smoothing things out, and Roots can help our tokens cast stuff, but stretching into 3 colors and then playing a bunch of Phyrexian Towers is naturally going to complicate things. So, sacrifice the token to put out a Bloodghast, just because it plays really well with Phyrexian Tower and Chthonian Nightmare as well. So, opponent is setting up for the long game. Now, Kumano faces Kakazan is like a known entity. Like, it is very strong. But an underrated thing against the decks I like to play is that when it flips, it provides passive graveyard hate for creatures dying, which is really annoying. And we are somewhat removal light in this deck. So, doing the slick little Renegade Rallier into bringing back Bowmasters play right there, no big deal. Bloodghast says haste, Kumano flips, and just this alone, Kumano flipping, might be enough to turn the game around for the opponent. Like, it's that strong against us. So here's Lightning Bolt, exiling our Renegade Rallier because of Kumano. Orcish Bowmasters, exiling our Orcish Bowmasters. So it could be that I got way too fancy and I needed to hold up Phyrexian Tower. I guess that wouldn't have mattered no matter what. So we basically just need to answer this flipped Kumano, because all of our sort of nightmare strategies aren't... We have a grief, but we can't do anything about it yet. Not to mention everything we sacrifice is getting exiled. So that little saga is really doing it all and really punishing us right here. So we'll have to see if we can... I mean, the opponent is at 5. Like, we might be able to just get there. Alright, opponent sends in, and we'll happily make this trade because it's going to unshackle our graveyard, but it's already done massive damage. Like, all of our creatures are in exile right now. Here comes second main phase Ragavan. Opponent passes. We draw Renegade Rallier, but it's not, like, super good right here. Attacking with Bloodghast, it's either free damage or we just get the Revolt trigger automatically. So we are going to get the Revolt trigger, so it died. We're going to play Renegade Rallier and bring it back. And honestly, I'm feeling okay at this point because their Vortex is chipping down their life as well. I mean, we're at 10, and they do have some burn in hand. So the opponent starts off the Lightning Bolt, and we know they have Skewer the critics, and let's see, and they have another Skewer the critics, so they end up burning us down to 1, and then Vortex finishes us off. Oh man, that sucks, but we move on to the next one. That was tough. It really felt like we had a chance, but honestly, like, just those few exiles by the Kumano Saga took us down. Not to mention the opponent ripping a bunch of burn spells, but that's how it goes. We're on to the next one. It gets a basic island. Always paranoid about Stifle in this format, though not everyone plays it. Decide to pitch a grief, once again sort of acting like we're going to scam them right here, and turns out it worked. We didn't even have the scam right there. That was just a phishing attempt. But yeah, I don't. Let me know if is grief too overpowered in this format. Let me know in the comments. I don't know. I think we need to. We don't have numbers and stuff like that. Obviously, I'm usually the one using grief, and I get griefed sometimes. But I don't know. I'm curious to see what everyone thinks. Obviously, some people think it's too powerful based on these super speedy concessions. Fetching a Surveil land, Chthonian Nightmare. We already have one. We have no creatures in the graveyard. We can do better than that. Gonna play the Phyrexian Tower. I guess it allows us to more information for our fetch lands there, but we're just gonna do the old-fashioned double Dark Ritual and lead with a grief hard cast. See what we're dealing with right here. Okay, so we're playing against Show and Tell, and this is the reason why I like grief. It punishes combo decks. Now, the opponent has like a very interesting hand. Like it's all action, a lot of relevant stuff, and like even if we took Omniscience, they'd still have Atraxa, which is a problem for us. Maybe I should just take an Omniscience since we have the Accursed Marauder to deal with like an Atraxa. I could see that, but I've been punished before by not taking Dark Rituals out of Show and Tell hands because they can assemble something all of a sudden that vaults their mana production up to just sort of make up for lost time. So opponent is going to Thought Seize us and take away Accursed Marauder, which is tough. Drawing Roots is nice if we can ever bring something back from our graveyard. So I'm taking a look right here. Going to definitely shock that in and attack in. The question is here, do we sacrifice grief? And it just doesn't seem very profitable. Maybe could have gotten like a Roots trigger, but yeah, grief on its own seems okay right now. Now with the second copy of Roots, that changes things because so we're gonna attack in, of course, and we fortunately have bought ourselves a lot of time with our grief shenanigans. Okay, so we're gonna play the second Roots. And I thought about it for a while, I'm like, should I like use Chthonian Nightmare here to just get the Roots going off and decide I probably should do it. So we're going to bring back Accursed Marauder. It is sort of awkward because Marauder is just going to like sacrifice itself away. But it's going to give us double root triggers, which can put some decent stats on the battlefield. Not to mention give us more mana flexibility. And the question is, do we Nightmare again? And I think I didn't do it here, but I think I should have, because we could have taken another chance of like stripping their hand away. So we would have had to like Phyrexian Tower. Anyway, I think we should have done it, put grief back into play. The opponent is getting some the shields down moment, so they're going to need to assemble the team. They're getting a lot of card selection here. Alright, so they're able to fetch. And they have the Thoughtseize, and that's another argument for like getting to use it one more time. So that was pretty brutal, and it shut down our engine for our roots right there by not using it. So pretty unfortunate. We're gonna mill ourselves and attack in, and really hope the opponent, because they were able to brainstorm fetch, you know, so they got some new cards coming off the top, and with the see, and we managed to sneak a win off show and tell, off a not really stellar showing right there. So happy how that turned out. Alright, opponent plays a swamp and passes. Double Dark Ritual. So here's the question, do you spend all the resources on a turn 1 grief, or do you wait until you can do grief into Bowmasters turn 2? Against a black deck, I'm a little worried about waiting that long because they might find some hand disruption. So decide just to hard cast the grief, and we'll eventually be able to deploy all the rest of our stuff. My opponent cycles Troll of Khazad-dûm. Let's see what they're working with. Okay, so this is the popular red-black Phoenix deck that's running around. Buried Alive has brought new life into Phoenix, and it just has a lot of powerful tools with Reanimate. We're definitely taking Reanimate right there. We don't want the Troll coming into play. Not to mention it constrains their like triple instant sorcery stuff for Phoenix. So opponent Faithless Lootings, and we run Bowmasters, so that's going to be very good punishment of any draw effects. So definitely going to hold up Bowmasters right here. Honestly, if we were able to somehow turn 1 Bowmasters against them, it might have just ended the game immediately. Opponent fires off another Faithless Looting. We're going to just get them right here with Bowmasters. So ding them. We're going to get 2 more Bowmaster triggers, and they're going to discard 2 cards. Alright, so here's our 2 more Bowmaster triggers. And let's see what the opponent's follow-up is. Like, they still might be able to get some Phoenixes in play. Alright, so there's a Dark Ritual into Reanimate. So they bring the Troll back, and that's going to bring the Phoenixes back. So the opponent is at a low life total. And, yeah, they're just going to crash in with those Phoenixes, and all of a sudden we're at 6. And, you know, we need 3 creatures to block the Troll. Anyway, we're just in a precarious spot right here. So we're going to Stitcher Supplier to see if we get anything interesting for Chthonian Nightmare. We didn't really. Fortunately, we have a basic to fetch right here. I'm going to grab the Swamp. We know we're going to potentially take 6, so we have to count on that. I'm going to go ahead and use Chthonian Nightmare, seeing what the opponent has. Deathrite Shaman could really help us gain some life eventually and stabilize, so I'm going to sacrifice Stitcher Supplier, and Stitcher Supplier could fill up our graveyard with more fun things to bring back. Alright, a bunch of creatures go into play. Now here's the question is, do we attack? I'm thinking about the triple block versus the Troll. I end up attacking because we can get them to 3 and then just basically force them to really think about stuff. So they end up sending the Troll in. We're going to snap triple block because I don't think we can go down to 1 against all these Phoenixes. But maybe we should have gambled it because we would have so many attackers coming at them, including a Menace creature and Deathrite Shaman. So there's an argument for no blocking there. End up snapping off the block, play a Chthonian Nightmare and going to just trade a grief for a grief just to see if we could take away that last card in hand. Doesn't seem good to attack in because they're only going to lose one Phoenix and then we're still in sort of big trouble. Alright, so we're going to take the Brainstorm. Wonder if they should have used it. Alright, they're going to Faithless Looting. Pitch Psychic Frog and a Grief. Alright, so they're actually a Grixis deck, okay. Now, Gnawing Vermin is actually perfect right here. It's what it's going to let us do is just win the game right here. So we're going to play Chthonian Nightmare, and what we're going to do is activate it, and we could get Bowmasters or Accursed Marauder would both accomplish it since Grief as Menace. But we could do like a fancy little thing here where we minus the toughness on one Phoenix, then ding it with the Bowmasters, and that leaves only one blocker, and then Grief gets through. This is a pretty cool deck. There's some fun and interesting play patterns. Like, I love Insidious Roots. There's a lot of cool things you can do with it. Renegade Rallier really fits nicely into that plan. It either triggers Roots when it's in play or brings the Roots into play if you need it. And not to mention, it goes really wild with Chthonian Nightmare. Honestly, this card actually probably outshone Roots in the games we played. Like, Roots is still good, but this card is really putting in the work. And you could see my last video that's dedicated to this card. It is a powerhouse. So one problem I had with this deck is I felt like I like where it's at. It's definitely not solved, but it feels overstuffed. Like, I don't have enough of any one thing that I want it to be doing. Like, honestly, if you're going to be self-milling, 6 cards dedicated to that is just not enough. Like, you need more of them to really make that happen. But then, you know, you need the Bloodghast. We want the Deathrite Shamans. You need Bowmasters, ways to kill stuff, ways to bring it back. And like, what do you end up cutting? Because you still need enough mana to play it all. So I feel like something has to give. Like, there's it's being pulled in too many directions. It needs to focus down and go all in on the plan. But the question is how. So you could see some stuff I was mulling over here and potentially trying. Like, there's the creatures that die into treasures. We could, you know, we're leaving out half the scam package. We could focus down into 2 colors and skip the Renegade Ralliers and use Kawadi Scavengers. There are some trade-offs between them. They're very similar, but I thought the mana advantage you get from Rallier is really important, so that's why I went for 3 colors here. But it's like, if you go 3 colors, do you lean even harder into it? Do you, Priest of Fell Rites to bring stuff back? But then that's more like a Reanimator card. So one thing that could possibly solve the issues is the card Buried Alive. By just running this, it allows us to sort of tighten up our package, and basically whenever we cast a Buried Alive, we can set up both Roots and Chthonian Nightmare at the same time by putting like 2 Bloodghasts and the Bowmasters into our graveyard, or Rally or whatever. That way, you know, we can play a land and trigger Roots, or be ready to have good potent targets to bring back with Nightmare. So it could be that this is the solution right here, is to trim off on a lot of things, sort of have like a toolbox package of creatures. So something to consider, but this is just an interesting puzzle that I'm going to keep working on. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you want to see even more nonsense, please consider subscribing. And if you're already subscribed, thank you for your support. Your engagement with the channel helps me know what the people want. Thank you.